Could you please tell us your full name and age?
Yes, my name is Ana Lizette Anguiano and I'm 29 years old.
What do you know about early onset Alzheimer's disease?
Well, that it's a genetic mutation and it starts really early in age, usually in the early 40s. There's no cure yet, and for the offspring of the people who do have it, there's always that 50% chance that they can inherit the mutation. And I know it's a neurodegenerative disease, so it affects the brain. And if it affects the brain, it eventually affects the whole body and the functions and how you can be independent on a daily basis.
When did you find out that your mom had early Alzheimer's?
So when we first had suspicions, I was about 16. At that time, my father was the one dealing with everything and noticing the changes and going to doctors. So at that age, I was more trying not to assimilate that. So I was trying to avoid it. I was like not trying to be involved in anything. But as time progressed, I had to accept it and see and myself seeing the changes in her.
Were you aware that the disease was part of the family?
Not at the beginning. No, I didn't know until later years when I became more involved and started doing my own research. I realized it was more a family genetic mutation.
When did you become aware that your mom had Alzheimer's, and how did you find out?
What when what I can recall more is her forgetting basic things. Because in my mother's case, it affected her more physically first than it did mentally. So I started noticing more when she started walking a little bit slower. She started kind of grabbing onto things when she would walk. And I was probably around 1920 when I started noticing more the symptoms and assimilating more the situation and just kind of went on from there.
Had you noticed that with her siblings?
I noticed a difference in the progression. For one of her older siblings, he progressed first mentally, but he was more physical movement. But and then her oldest sister, she, from what I can remember of her, is just mainly being in a convalescent home, just like sleeping all the time. Never was I able to like talk to her, have a conversation with her. So I did notice just a lot of differences in how it progressed, at least with them three. Okay, so in my mother's side of the family, there were a total of 7 siblings, and 5 of them with the condition, including my mom. It's been 4 that have passed away, and the youngest sibling, he's about 54 right now. He is already in, I'm gonna say, mild, moderate stage of the disease. He is currently in Mexico, and two of the girl siblings, they seem not to have the mutation because they're already over 60 years old, and they seem to function just typical and normal for their age.
What does your family and siblings think about the disease? What do you talk about the disease? What do you think about the disease?
I mean, it's a very hard situation, at least in the beginning, to live with it, but I think personally it teaches you to be more like helpful towards others, and more conscious of like all the type of diseases that are there out there, and like the help that you can provide for the people that do have it. At least for my mom, it made me see things very differently. It made me it just seeing how people around you can react to it, even your immediate family. Some can be more accepting of it, others it's harder to, and in the end you have to pretty much accept it and just go along with it, because if it's for your parents or your siblings, you're going to want to be there for them and support them and help them, especially knowing that you're capable of providing them that help, and wanting like any other to live a good quality of life, and just being there and with them until God permits it.
Do you worry about yourself or any other family members in your family unit and extended family that might have to deal with the disease?
I worry about myself sometimes. I'm very just cautious, like with things that I do. If sometimes I feel like if I forget something, like it kind of brings me back to thinking if I may have it. But then I look at other ways to think, like, oh, maybe I don't. And I just find myself that I bring my thoughts away from it, at least for myself. I do worry for my brother sometimes. He's very forgetful and for certain things, and I want to think it's just, like a typical behavior of some people, but in the back of my head, I do worry more for him developing this more than I do myself. As to other family members that I can think of, I don't worry as much because we're all still around the same age, so there's no signs that you can see. But eventually, if they were to have it, I would definitely worry a lot for them and for their well-being.
Are there any family members in your generation or the generation before you that are beginning or dealing with Alzheimer's disease already?
Yeah, I have a cousin. He's older than me, but we are the same generation. And it seems that he might have it, but he is doing very well right now, currently. And I try to help him as much as I can and seek all the resources I can for him so he can have, a longer lasting quality life. Other than that, there's really not anybody yet that I can think of in my generation, or at least around me. But actually, I have heard of one cousin that might have it, but she's in Mexico and I've never met her. She is in her early 40s, but because of one of her siblings, I kind of think she might have it because she is presenting symptoms that are connected to it, but I have no contact with them. I don't know where they live, and I can't really tell you how advanced or not she may be.
Okay, so let's talk now about a little bit about the caregiving responsibilities when your mom was alive.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the day-to-day things that you did, and what other family members participated in that?
So during her more, I'm going to say, severe stage of the disease, when she became very dependent of us, my brother, and my father would help her 100% of the time with basic daily hygienes, changing clothes, transferring from her wheelchair to the toilet seat, helping her bring her back, physically having to kind of carry her. Same thing for putting her to bed, helping her change her clothes, preparing all her meals for her. At the same time, though, we try to keep her independence where we found she can deal with it. Like feeding herself, it was something that she was able to do even to almost to her last days. She was able to kind of do that. After when her speech really went down, we had to kind of, we knew her so well that we kind of knew what she wanted to say or request. But from there, it was just anything physical, we would have to do it for her. Sometimes making decisions for her as well.
How many years did you did your mom live with the condition?
It was about 10 years in total since her diagnosis until her passing.
Now, how did you deal, or did you ever get depressed? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, definitely I did. Being in your, early 20s and stuff, and trying to start your own family on the side, and knowing that you have this responsibility with your mom, it was just very overwhelming and stressing, and it got to the point where I get really sad. I can't really say if I was depressed, but definitely very sad at times. And I just found myself constantly thinking about, the care I have to provide and trying to have my own life. Like, it was a lot of things that you think about, so it makes you very sad. I would cry a lot. I would sometimes just explode and just be, screaming, yelling, but eventually in the end, I would have to get back to myself and provide the care necessary for her.
Did you feel at that time that talking to your husband about your depression or feelings that you were experiencing regarding the caregiver responsibilities, did you feel comfortable talking about that? And did you feel supported by him?
I definitely felt supportive because we stayed together through that very hard time in our life. It was hard to give him attention, and he was very understanding of it. We wouldn't really talk deeply about it because honestly there wasn't really like time where we had alone, and when we did, we tried to do things outside of the house or just deal with our own things. And sometimes it was hard to talk to him because he also would get overwhelmed and desperate and with the situation, but he stayed with me throughout the whole time, so I'm very grateful for that. And now we're still together, and we're in so much better place now, and I think somehow that journey brought us closer together, because he would also help me with my mom when he saw that I couldn't handle it anymore. He would jump in and try to talk to her or take her outside and something, and that would help me kind of take a minute for myself and come back and then start again.
Do you have any other people in your life that you feel comfortable expressing your feelings, or like close family members or friends?
Yes, I have a few couple close friends that I talk to very openly, and so that always makes me feel good. I have my dad, who I can talk to almost about anything, and he's very supportive, and he'll give me his advice and point of views. My brother also, certain topics are not so easy, but for the most part we're able to talk. And then I have cousins that I talk to from here and also from Mexico, so I feel I have people that I can trust and talk to and vent to.
Sure. Now, tell me a little bit about the issues or problems that the family had to deal with as a result of the disease. For example, legal, financial, spiritual, moral issues.
We were very fortunate that at least for the financial part, we were pretty stable. We were blessed with the fact that even though I had to take care of her, she qualified for services where a caregiver would take care of her and get paid for it. So that was definitely a blessing for us, that financially we didn't struggle as much. We had some situations sometimes with Medi-Cal because they took in account my father's earnings and stuff, but we had a lot of supportive social workers like Joseph Herrera, who would help us find a way to get through it and maintain her Medi-Cal, because without it we wouldn't be able to financially support her in what she needed with her doctors and stuff. The doctors she had care from were excellent. They were great with us, with her. They not only went with her in like a medical level, but also became pretty close. And I was able to feel that they would generally also help her and talk to her and try to help us. So regardless of the tough situation, we were blessed with people who truly helped her and cared for her the best of their ability.
How let me see. Were you able to reach to other people, or how easy was it to reach to other people to get assistance?
It was fairly easy with the phone, internet, all of those things. It wasn't hard to find help. Certain situations sometimes were hard to manage, but luckily we had people who had the knowledge and like medical insurance and all of those things. So even though it was a little bit stressing getting to it, we always got good support and advice from people.
Now, the time that you were taking your mom, were you going to school and working, or what were you doing at the time?
So a few years in to her being diagnosed, I was going to school. I did have a job. When we found out she qualified for being in-home cared, I quit my job to start taking care of her. But and I was going to school. I was able to graduate. She was at my graduation, and yeah, it was hard. And I had my daughter as well in that transition, so everything kind of happened at the same time.
How were you able to take care of yourself, having to deal with all that?
Honestly, it's hard to kind of think about myself when that everything was happening, because there was like so much for me to give care for that I didn't really think about myself. I would actually kind of get out of the house until at night sometimes when she was already asleep, and literally kind of like sneak out of my house for some time, usually with my daughter, because I already had her. And then I just had to kind of plan ahead. If I wanted to do something for myself without my mom or anything, I had to plan ahead, find somebody to help me take care of her, and then be able to leave. But even though I would be out of the house, you're just constantly thinking like, how is she doing? Are they taking good care of her? Is she okay? Like, it's just always in your head, and even though you're not physically there, it's just really in your head the whole time.
Now let's talk about a little bit about supports in the community. Are you aware of any agencies that provide support to families of people who are dealing with Alzheimer's disease or other types of dementias?
Yes, definitely the support groups for early onset Alzheimer's that are provided. We were able to find one through coming to Rancho Los Amigos, and then from an aunt of ours who also would go. Support groups are definitely very beneficial because you get to hear other people's experiences and kind of connect it to yours, and you kind of feel there's people out there in your same situation. Unfortunately, the times that I've been to the groups, there's not a lot of people that come. It's pretty sad, but it's something that's very beneficial, but sometimes people, I guess, can't really make it, or they don't think they're that helpful. I'm not sure what their mindset would be on that, but definitely support groups are very, very helpful because it just lets you be open about what you're going through, sometimes what to expect, and also just giving tips to each other.
What about educational programs through Alzheimer's Association or Alzheimer's LA?
Um,
Did you ever attend any of those, or were you aware that they existed?
I was aware of some of them through the social worker that is in the Alzheimer's Association, and also just myself researching. I guess that's kind of my way of kind of learning more about it. Um, yeah.
Okay.
So let's do a follow-up question on that. So these organizations like Greater Alzheimer's LA and all that stuff, did you feel like they provided enough support for you?
Yes, I think they did. They
You want to
did.
elaborate on that?
Yeah, because I feel they helped us find resources, at least for my mom's care, and to make the situation a little bit better. They also gave us some tips of how to take care of her, and just things that we wouldn't really think about would come up in like these talks or these meetings. Yeah, so it helped a lot. And also just what resources are out there, especially financial ones, that can help, because that's definitely something that is greatly needed when you're taking care of somebody.
Okay. Can you tell us in closing what your experience as the daughter of somebody with the early onset Alzheimer's disease was like?
It was a very hard journey, but also I found myself seeing it as a blessing as well. I was able to take care of her and learn so much from her, and definitely made me more thoughtful of all the people out there who need help. And I feel that if one is able to have the abilities to take care of somebody, definitely that person that needs it is placed in your life for a reason. And I think that's what happened in part in our situation. I also my faith really grew during this journey, and I feel that God's intentions were to kind of restore that humanity actions towards people, and I feel he made me think more of, if you can give care to somebody who needs it, there's always going to come a blessing for you later on in life. And definitely that's how I feel right now.
What would you say to your relatives in your generation and future generations that may have to deal with the disease, and the community at large that may have to experience the disease through them?
To definitely try to get informed. Now with the internet, it makes it, I think, so much easier to find resources. Ask your doctors, it's always from one person to another where you can get to the right place, and just don't give up on looking for those resources, that help that can be out there. Definitely reach out to the Alzheimer's Association. They can definitely start you there and guide you. And I know every situation will be different, so it'll just depend on how their situation is, and to just be accepting of it as soon as you can and move on from there, because now the person who's going to matter most is the person with the development of the disease.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
No, we pretty much covered everything. That was the question I was gonna ask, and that was right on. Like, what advice will you give to people that are in the situation that you were in? What's the one takeaway that you can pass on to somebody?
To definitely not give up on your relative. I think it's very hard to just imagine if you put them in a home or something, and you can later on regret it. Just kind of take it day by day, even though that's something easy to say but hard to do. And try to find, people around you that can help you. I'm sure there's always that one person who's willing to help, because at least that happened to us. And to just try to take time for yourself whenever you can, to make you feel more ready to jump right back into it.
What exercises, mental exercises or physical exercises, what did you do to help you cope with the stress?
One thing that I probably wasn't the best idea, I found myself just eating a lot of the things that I enjoyed, usually a lot of sweets and stuff. Maybe at that time it wasn't the best thing, but it made me feel good in a sense. Just going out and also just reading a lot of about the disease and about other people's experiences. I joined a group on Facebook about people who have their relatives like that, and just reading their stories and seeing how some of them have it way more difficult than me was just like, well, my situation is not as bad as I thought it was. So just reading about other people's experiences greatly made me see that even though it was a hard situation, I was blessed in the sense that it wasn't as hard as some people had it. So that's where it kind of motivated me to be like, okay, this is not that bad. Like, we can keep going. We can manage through it.
If you had a chance to go back in time and do something different, what would you have done different?
I think I would have tried to take better care of my mom. Like, I know at the moment I feel I'm giving everything, but reflecting on it, I felt that I could have maybe found like places for her to go outside from the house, or maybe invite more people over, because we were more like kind of isolated, we became in a sense, and we wouldn't really invite people over or take her out, because thinking, how the situation is, what her behaviors could be. Maybe that would have been something that would have been better for all of us, to just constantly maybe have people over and inform them of the situation and make them see, the severity of this disease.
What led you to become more isolated?
I'm gonna say, I guess we were just so self-conscious of the behaviors that she would sometimes show, that we felt like people would get uncomfortable with it. Maybe we were wrong, but at the time it's just how we felt. Just the things that she would sometimes kind of do made us feel people were not so accepting of it, or very judgmental, that we would just decide to just rather just stay home or isolated from everybody.
So what would you say to people that are making the same choices you guys made?
To definitely try to be more social and invite people over and teach them about the kind of care that you provide for the people who need it. To not just stay home, and try to find people who are maybe in your same situation and kind of learn from each other.
And what would you have done different for you as a caretaker? Caregiver, I am so sorry.
Definitely exercise, something that I didn't really do. I would feel so sad most of the time when it came really hard for her with her behaviors and stuff, that I would just like lay down and like not trying to get up. But definitely I found that exercise is a big help. Even just walking, getting fresh air, it's just like a reset button for you. And yeah, like trying to reach out more to people rather than feeling like, oh, I'm gonna be, judged because of the situation we're in. And yeah, just being more social as much as you can, inviting people over. Don't feel like you can't have people over because of the condition you're your relative can be in?
What would you say to researchers who are looking for a cure for this condition? And the second part is, what would you tell people about getting involved and participating in research so that they can provide assistance in finding a cure?
To the researchers, I don't think there's much I can say because I've been a participant in the research and I feel that what they're on right now and using and researching is what there's available to do to find a cure. I don't think there's anything I can actually say or suggest to them because I know they're very knowledgeable in this disease and they have all, the research already. There's nothing really I can think about at the moment that I can suggest to them. As to participants, I would definitely encourage people to do it because even if I know sometimes people are scared to be involved in it because they think, oh, I might have it and just kind of stress themselves more than it would be. But I know research needs just to compare, even people who do have it and people who don't. And I think it gives research a better understanding of how things develop, or at least how the disease develops, and comparing it to somebody typical or who doesn't have any inheritance of it, it still is a big part of contributing to the research of possibly finding a cure.
What was the second part of the question?
Are you hopeful that they will find a cure through research?
I am hopeful. I really hope for it. But I also feel, well, at least my personal, I have a lot of faith in God, and I think if we, or at least, if we were more, hopeful in God and had more faith in God, like, honestly, like, I think if we prayed enough for Him or were more involved with Him, like, I think He would be able to do something for us.
I have a question for you. Do you feel that the public at large are as informed about this disease as they are about others, like cancer or things of that nature?
No, I don't think so, because this disease really, especially if they don't know like a history of it, people I think I've seen a lot of people see it as it just happens spontaneously. And what I've known from research, it's, you have inherited, but it won't develop until later on in life. So I think people in general don't see that as an option because they haven't seen it previously. So, and I think the early symptoms are not as much out there for people to kind of know about them, because I mean, once it hits, that's when you notice there's something's not right. But prior to that, anything that's happening already inside the body or in the brain, it's not visible, so people don't tend to pay much attention to any of that until, you can actually see a change.
But do you think the public is educated on this disease?
Not entirely. No, I don't think they are. There is a lot of, out there about the disease, but I don't think there's enough yet, or it's not seen as much as with other kind of conditions.
What do you think? If you had the power to do something to make people aware of this disease, like, what would you do?
I would try to have more publicity for it, in a lot of like doctor offices or like places where, say, like a specific kind of ethnic group, like say Mexican Americans, restaurants where you see a lot of people like that. Maybe have some kind of publicity in there about it or information to kind of open their eyes more to it, and just, I don't know, maybe target just places where certain people go to, and just have, posters out there, or people, walking and giving information. I know sometimes we tend to kind of ignore it, but just not giving up in the sense of trying to inform people, or seeing more billboards around it, around certain areas where we know maybe there's people who are prone to that disease. Maybe that could be a help for them.
But do you feel like you're pretty knowledgeable at this point? Do you feel that the government or medical institutions, do you feel like we're doing enough to make the people aware of the existence of this disease? Do you feel like we're doing enough?
I think we're at a good start right now, of informing people, but there definitely can be more of it. Maybe more of it, like in, I don't know, local news, just kind of like here and there kind of mention it, or have more reports about it of people, and people who are prone to it, not even people who actually have it, but people who can develop it, just throwing it out there more where people would able to see it. Maybe that would be something that would be beneficial to keep people informed.
Do you want to invite people to participate in studies?
Yeah, I would invite people. As a participant myself, you feel you're contributing somehow to the research and to a possible cure. So you can feel good about yourself and say, I'm helping, I'm trying to be involved and help to find a cure for it.
Well said. Well said. Very well said. Hey,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to make sure that a lot of people see this. I promise you.
Okay.